بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In this lecture, we are going to introduce you to the third domain of parasitology, which is arthropods. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to identify the general characters, differentiate between different classes of arthropoda of medical importance, identify the different stages in the different life cycles of arthropoda, and understand their medical importance, realize the methods of conveying disease agents by arthropoda, and have an idea about the general methods to control arthropods. Compared to the number of other species of living creatures, mammals, protozoa, helminths, the insect outnumbers them all. In fact, most of our planet is occupied by members of this phylum Arthropoda. Arthropods consist of two parts. The word arthro meaning joints, pods meaning limbs. So these are the invertebrate animals having jointed appendages. These appendages may be legs or antennae. The body of these arthropods are bilaterally symmetrical, meaning that if I divide the body by a longitudinal axis, it will be divided into two similar halves. Their body is usually segmented, and it is protected from the outside by a thick cover called chitin, and it represents the exoskeleton of arthropods. So arthropods have got their skeleton outside their bodies and not like ourselves inside our bodies and covered by flesh. Usually an arthropods is composed of three regions: the head region, thorax, and the abdomen. The head carries the eyes, the antennae. Antennae are sensory structures and responsible for balance and sensation. The mouth parts used by the arthropod for feeding. Then the second part is the thorax, which usually carries the legs and a pair of wings or more, if wings are present. Not all arthropods have got wings. The abdomen is segmented, and if we examine the last part of the abdomen, we may find the external genitalia of the arthropods. They may be external genitalia of male or external genitalia of female, since arthropods are differentiated into males and females. The body of an arthropod, from inside, there are organs which represent different systems of the body, like the digestive system, the excretory, circulatory, respiratory, and nervous systems. All these organs are present in the body cavity within a fluid which we call hemolymph. Outside, these organs are protected by an exoskeleton, which is formed of tough material called chitin. As we said, the exoskeleton protects the inside organs. Also, they give insertion to the muscles of the arthropods. The life cycle of an arthropod, which we call metamorphosis. Meta means change, and morphosis means morphology or the outer characteristics of the arthropods. The life cycle may be either complete or incomplete. Incomplete life cycle, we have got four stages. The adult, which lay eggs. The eggs hatch to give larvae. The larvae change into pupa, and then the pupa change into adult. If we compare the morphology of the immature stages, namely the larva and the pupa, we find that they are completely different in morphology from the adult, and big changes must happen in order to change into an adult. So there are complete metamorphological changes, and that's why we call the life cycle complete metamorphosis. In contrast to incomplete metamorphosis, in which we have only three stages: the adult, which give the egg, and then the egg hatch to give the nymph. The nymph turns into the adult. The morphology of the nymph is very similar to an adult, with few differences. The nymph is smaller, lighter in color, sexually immature. So we have few morphological changes which occur to the nymph in order to be an adult, and that's why we call this life cycle an incomplete life cycle. We should notice that the more the stages which the life cycle comprise, the more effort it takes to control this arthropod. The phylum Arthropoda contain three main classes: class Insecta, class Arachnida, and class Crustacea. Of course, there are other classes, but we're interested only in these three because these three classes include members which are of medical importance to man. Class Insecta includes four orders of interest to man: Diptera, namely mosquitoes and flies; Siphoneptera, fleas; Hemiptera, meaning bugs; Anoplura, which includes lice. Now we're going to give you a hint about the bionomics of the arthropods. Bionomics means the environment and the habits of the arthropods which they adopt during their life cycle. Starting with the breeding places. Where do arthropods breed? They breed in different environments. For example, mosquitoes need water, so they breed in swampy areas or small collections of water. Sandflies need holes and cracks in the walls. Simulium needs running oxygenated water, so they breed near rivers. The masca, which is the ordinary fly which we meet in our everyday life, breed in garbage. Stomoxys, another fly, breeds in horse stables on horse dung. Also, some parasites are, some arthropods, are permanent parasites. They spend their entire life cycle on their host. They do not depart except after death, like lice and heartticks. Maybe these are the only two examples of permanent ectoparasites. Other parasitic arthropods are temporary, meaning that they visit their host to take their blood meal and then they fly away to complete their life away from their hosts. The importance of arthropods, some of them can cause direct damage to human tissues by themselves. Others act as vectors, meaning that they transfer the disease-causing organism. They transmit other pathogenic organisms which cause disease to man. On the other hand, arthropods may have some benefits. Some of them may be used as drugs. Others are used as models for genetic studies. So, what is the medical importance of arthropods? In other words, what are the medical conditions which they may cause to man? First, entomophobia. Entomophobia means an abnormal fear of arthropods. This is a psychological disturbance which may affect man. They may themselves cause disease. They inflict damage to man, like for example myiasis and scabies. Myiasis is a condition caused by the larvae of flies which are laid in on human skin, either intact or diseased, or they may crawl through body openings and cause tissue damage. Scabies is another arthropod which burrows through the man's skin, and they cause a very severe itching condition. Of course, these conditions you're going to study in details as you proceed in the parasitological course. Some arthropods may inject poison, like scorpions, spiders, ticks. Others bite, and their bites may be painful, or they may even cause severe allergic conditions to man. Finally, arthropods may transmit other pathogenic organisms to man. So, collectively, we may say that arthropods may be transmitters of other disease agents, or they themselves are the etiology of the disease. If we would like to see some examples of the disease caused by the arthropods themselves, this may include myiasis, scabies, pediculosis, bites, stings, and acne. As I told you, myiasis is a condition due to laying of larvae or eggs of flies on human flesh. Scabies is an itchy condition caused by invasion of human skin by a certain arthropods. Pediculosis is the presence of lice in the scalp, in the clothes, in the genital area, and causing again severe itching. The bites of some arthropods are painful, and they may result in allergic condition. Stings of some arthropods may inject poison inside the bodies and may even cause death of man. Acne is another skin condition um, in which some lesions appear on the face, and they are believed to be caused by some sort of arthropods which acts together with anaerobic bacteria to produce these lesions. Some arthropods like spiders, scorpions have got specialized glands which secrete poison, and when injected in man, they may cause severe injury or may even end in death. Most insects visit man to have a blood meal, and in order to keep the blood which they suck in a liquid form, they inject their saliva, which contain an anticoagulant to keep the blood in a liquid form, but also this saliva contain many allergens leading to allergy and intense itching at the site of bite, or it may be more generalized and affect the whole body. How do arthropods transmit other causative agents of disease? They either transmit these pathogenic agents either directly from one place to man, and the pathogenic agent does not undergo any change in number or in morphology, and we call this mechanical transmission. In other cases, the pathogenic uh, parasite or the disease agent, which is transmitted by the arthropods, undergo changes inside the body of the arthropods. They either increase in number, change in morphology, means they pass from one stage to another, or they undergo both changes, meaning that they increase in number and change in morphology. Uh, and these arthropods in which the disease agents undergo changes in number and morphology, we call this biological transmission. And biological transmission is classified into four types. The first type, in which the disease agent changes in shape. We call it cyclodevelopmental change. Or it may increase in number, and we call this propagative biological transmission. Or the disease agent may increase in number and change in morphology, and we call this cyclopropagative transmission. Sometimes the arthropods pass the disease agent to its offspring, meaning that the adult arthropods contain the pathogenic organism. And when it lays eggs and these eggs hatch, the newly formed arthropod inherit this causative agent of disease from its mother. And we call this transovarian transmission, and it characterizes a certain type of arthropods, which is ticks. Of course, for each type of biological transmission, there are examples. Just read them, and later on in the course you are going to study each one in details. Now we finish talking about what happens to the disease agent inside the body of the arthropods. Now the arthropods carrying these agents of disease, how do they convey it to man? Or in other words, how do we get infected by these agents carried by the arthropods? We may ingest the infected arthropods, as sometimes we swallow a flea containing the infective stage of a helminth known as Diplydium caninum or Hymenopus diminuta. Or we may swallow with water the cyclops containing the larva of Dracunculus medinensis or the procercoid of Diphyllobothrium mansoni. Sometimes the arthropods bites causing a wound, and then the wound of this bite may be contaminated by the parasite which is found in the feces of the arthropods, or because the bite itches and we scratch, we may crush the body of the arthropod, releasing the disease agent from inside the body of the arthropod, and again they contaminate the wound bite. Or the arthropod may inject the infective stage of the parasite with its saliva. As I said, the arthropod sucks blood and inject the saliva containing an anticoagulant to keep this blood in a liquid form, and this saliva may contain the infective stage of the disease agent. Or sometimes the warmth of the host which the arthropod visits for obtaining a blood meal may attract the arthropod, and so they crawl from the mouth parts of the arthropod on the skin of the host in order to enter through the bite of the wound, and man gets infected. Also, sometimes the causative agent of disease may come out with the feces of the arthropod, and then these feces are dried and change into minor aerosols which may be inhaled by man, and so man gets infected. Or we may crush the arthropods, contaminate our fingers with the disease agent present inside this arthropod, and then without washing our hands we may rub our eyes, for example, or our nose, and so the disease agent is transmitted from our contaminated fingers into the conjunctiva of our eyes or the mucous membrane, for example, of the nose or of the mouth, and again we are infected. These disease agents, which are transmitted biologically by arthropods, belong to several categories of organisms. They may be helminths, bacteria, viruses, rickettsia, protozoa. Biological transmission of disease agent by arthropods coined an expression known, or a term known as vector-borne diseases. These are infections transmitted by arthropods containing the disease agent which cause this disease. And when these arthropods visit the host to obtain their blood meal, they infect him with these disease agents. We call this arthropod a vector, and we call the disease resulting from infection by this method vector-borne disease. There are many famous examples of these vector-borne diseases, which include malaria, sleeping sickness, plague, epidemic typhus, epidemic relapsing fever, and so forth. Control of arthropods. I'm going to give you mosquitoes as an example of arthropods and how we control this arthropod as an example of how to control an arthropod. The control is divided into two categories. Control directed to the immature stages and control directed towards the adults. The immature stages of mosquitoes inhabit water, and so our control of it falls into three categories: physical, biological, chemical. Physical is in short changing the environmental which is favorable to the arthropod into an unfavorable environment which would not help in the breeding of this arthropod, of this mosquito, I mean. For example, removing the collection of water, changing the character of water from slow running to fast running, removing the vegetations from the sides of the water banks in order to render the environment unsuitable for the breeding of mosquitoes. Biological transmission, we go to the natural enemies of these insect, which is here the mosquito, breed them in order to feed on it. For example, we may raise fish, ducks, frogs, which feed on the larvae of mosquitoes, or use spores of some bacteria which are toxic to the larvae of mosquitoes present in water. In chemical control, we use chemical compounds in order to kill these stages. Control of others, on the other hand, and here again I'm talking about a mosquito as an example, we may use screens on windows and doors in order to prevent the entry of the insects into our homes, or we may sleep under a bed net again to prevent the mosquitoes from reaching us and bite. Or we may use repellents. Repellents are substances which we paint our exposed areas of our bodies in order to keep the mosquitoes or any biting insect away. And these repellents may be natural products like citronella oil, eucalyptus oil, but these have got the drawback of being short acting. It has to be repeated every short interval of time. And on the other hand, there are synthetic repellents like indolone, which have a long acting period of time. Or again, we may use insecticides. These are chemicals which we kill the others by. Or light traps. Light traps attract the insect, and when they come near it, they got stick and burnt. Animal barriers, we mean here people who raise animals, so they should construct their houses so that the animal sheds are present outside and their sleeping bedrooms are in the middle. So when these biting creatures come at night in order to have their blood meal, the first thing they meet are the animals, so they bite the animals, have their blood meal, and spare the humans sleeping inside. Genetic control. In genetic control, we raise males in the laboratory, expose them to gamma rays in order to make them sterile, and then release them in the environment to compete with the natural males in mating females. And when females are mated with sterile male, they lay eggs which do not hatch because they are infertile eggs. I'll give you a hint about the good sides of arthropods. Some venom of arthropods are extracted and used to treat allergy. Of course, when they are given in dilute small injections on different intervals of time. Sometimes they use the sting of bees to treat some autoimmune diseases which do not respond to medical conservative treatments. There is what's so-called the maggot debridement therapy. Maggots means the larvae of flies. These larvae are bred in the lab to make sure that they are clean and do not carry any disease agents, and then they are placed on resistant ulcers or resistant wounds which do not heal easily. These larvae eat up the dead tissues and even the bacteria present, and they help to speed up the recovery of these resistant lesions. Sometimes the extract of some arthropods like beetles are used as an aphrodisiac. Aphrodisiac means that they increase the sexual desire of man.